today, actually yesterday, Kenny Payne out as the basketball coach at Louisville. This was more than expected. That is why you have seen some of the rumors of who might be targeted by Louisville. And Louisville, with a great history, but it's been a tough run, could pretty much reach out to who they want. Doesn't mean they'll get all of who they want or any of who they want. But that brings up the story that today I think Ole Miss extended a contract with Chris Beard. Here are the odds from earlier today. Scott Drew at Baylor, Nate Oates at Alabama. Beard has signed an extension, like a big one, at Ole Miss. Cronin, who seems like he's miserable every single day of his life. Tang at K-State. Forbes, Shorts, Shaka Smart, and goes down the list. Dusty May, whose name has come up as a possible target with Ohio State. Musselman at Arkansas, and the field. Now, there's, of course, others that are listed at the very bottom that are pipe dreams, but I think even Scott Drew at the top, that's going to get some people to go yes or no on that. We asked Scott yesterday, could he ever expect to coach anywhere else but Baylor? He never said, no, I'm not going to Louisville, and so that will be something people will say. He never said no about Louisville because he knows it's out there, but he said he would not be leaving. Going to hope to win national championships, multiple championships here, but at least there's that list.
Yeah, I think the Scott Drew thing from Vegas is they're listening to the fans too much, and probably the AD has probably let it slip through a source that he's going to try to call him, but I just don't see that. Actually, my top 5 is on this today. I have some of these guys' names on there, and I think the bottom of the list has a much better shot of happening than the top of the list. I don't know anything about odds and coaching searches and all that, but I think Vegas is way off on this. I think that some of the guys at the bottom have a much bigger shot. And when I say the bottom, I don't mean the others category. I mean the last 4 or 5 there.
Shaka, Lamont, Dusty, Eric in the field.
Shirts, yeah. I think Dusty May's got a way better shot of going there than Scott Drew does. Again, I know that he was just in the Final Four a year ago, but and FAU's got it humming again. But to me, it's Louisville. It's in a power conference. You've got a little more guarantees there, but I don't know. The whole thing. I don't think maybe people know, but Scott Drew, and we do because we've been here, but he's literally been begging for a new arena for 15 years, and they finally built it for him, and he's going to leave after he plays 12 games in it? Come on!
Yeah, I think it's it's just par for the course to see names that are going to generate some conversation and whatnot during a coaching search that sometimes aren't very realistic, and sometimes maybe they're more realistic than the people that are penning those opinions. And I think with Scott Drew, obviously yesterday he didn't say no, absolutely no chance whatsoever, so that leaves the door cracked open. But based on every piece of evidence that one would consider significant, there is not a single point that you would tally in favor of Louisville. Not a single one. In terms of all of the things at his disposal now and where the program currently sits, there's just nothing outside of simply wanting to make a move that would make sense for him to go to Louisville. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's the only thing. He's making big money. He's got a brand new arena. They're putting guys in the lottery every single year now. I think they're looking at the 4th year in a row they're going to have a lottery pick.
4th highest ranked recruiting class again.
Highly ranked recruiting classes. Investments from the school. So barring a massive, here's $1 billion just for Louisville basketball type of a move, I don't know why that would be a play for him versus where he is already right now. And the other part of it is, oh gosh, I just lost my train of thought there. But I don't buy into it. I understand the speculation just comes with the territory, but I would be shocked if Scott Drew left Baylor for Louisville. Oh yeah, the other part of it is, what conference is Louisville going to be in?
We don't know.
Foreseeable future?
At least right now, ACC, right?
So, even at this point, the Big 12 is actually on, I guess, as strong of a footing as they can be given the circumstances. And the ACC is at a point where nobody really knows what the heck's going to happen. And if anything, if they were to crater, where's Louisville likely going to go? Back to the Big 12, because there's been those dalliances in the past where it got very close to them being in the Big 12 years ago. But yeah, I get it, but I don't think he's going anywhere.
I don't either. But you again,
you
never know. But at least everything you said, every box you could check is checked. We on the left-hand corner, left side. If Baylor was here, Louisville, and I asked this to somebody within Baylor administration maybe a week or two ago. If this was 2016 or 17, before, and they were good, and they were building. But there was at least the possibility he might look at it and go, remember Indiana, which of course has also been flailing. They reached out and were very interested in Scott Drew because of his connection to that part of the country. So there we are with that. And Scott Drew, the basketball coach, now getting his team ready for the winter between Cincinnati and Kansas. They'll play later on this evening.
Like, as much appreciation as Scott Drew has for the history of basketball, I don't think that you're getting him there just because of something that happened in the 80s or 90s.
Right, that would be the one thing that you go, okay, they have that, but that's the only thing, really.
But yeah, I mean, look, and it's Indiana's trying to decide if they've made the right decision now, too. I mean, they haven't made good decisions as coaches for a long time, or stuff hasn't worked out, or things are different. And one of those things that's different that Louisville and Indiana, have not been able to kind of maintain with some of the other, blue bloods like Kansas or Kentucky or UConn or whoever, is that, there's other coaches in other parts of the country that for a while didn't really care about basketball that are good now. Like, when you've got FAU being good and San Diego State being good and all these different things happening, like, it's hard for you to be like, well, we were in Louisville. We won in the 2000s. Like, yeah, okay. That's a long time ago now.
By the way, someone brought this up in the on a text to us. What about Baylor basketball when it comes to NIL? They're fine. They are just fine. Keontae
Look at
George,
their recruiting classes.
Eve Missy, Jacoby Walter, VJ Edgecombe, and again, Duke was a part of that recruitment. Robert Wright, a highly rated guard. A lot of people wanted him as well, so they seem to be just fine. And I think that the football may have lagged behind for whatever reasons. You can say this or that. Basketball, I think, was ahead of the curve with Scott and Baylor and the NIL.
Well, Scott Drew knew what they were going to need to do right away, because basketball's been doing NIL better than football under the and I don't mean that as Baylor has. I mean that as basketball as a sport was probably a lot better at the old school NIL under the table stuff than football was for a very long time, because you're also talking about like a limited number of dudes, that you're getting. Also, like, he's got to make sure that, all 12 guys have something on the roster, but really you have to worry about 4 or 5 making sure that they're good, as opposed to football, where if you only worry about 4 or 5, then you're not going to be very good. So it's a little bit of a different thing, and he was out in front of it. His philosophy was different. Dave Aranda had a different philosophy, but he's now changing, so that's why.
Mm-hmm. I worry about Baylor and NIL when it comes to football because of just the number of investments that you have to make, covering far more players. You can't just get a couple guys and feel like you're going to be competing for a conference championship. It's got to be a bit more thorough. In basketball, the numbers being smaller, I think that's a lot more manageable for a program like Baylor. We'll see in football. Not to say it's impossible, not to say they're not working hard at it, not to say it's not going to continue to improve, but I just think for a school, like, if they had to make a choice of like what's the best long-term investment for us that we can handle, it would be basketball. And so I think that's manageable, much more than probably people would think. But yeah, Louisville might have more, and it would have to be significant, though, in my mind. But I don't think it's enough of an advantage that you pack up what you've been doing for 20 years and all that you built here to go start over somewhere else.
Daniel said, hey, by the way, the NIL question that you mentioned in the text line was because of an article. I can find it. Daniel, I appreciate that. You don't have to do that. I saw a couple of things written about NIL, et cetera.
Yeah, it's a good question.
Baylor is fine in men's basketball, like really good when it comes to the NIL. All right, when we come